All right, folks, welcome back to another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video with Fat Phil. And today, I've got raid footage rolling already. We're gonna be going through some quality of life updates that I wish Capital Games would bring to Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. These are just a couple of things that I've looked at, and I'm like, you know what? I really think these could be good changes to, I think, not only make the game more enjoyable, but I think even just bring back some of what made this game great. That a lot of the recent changes, many of them have been good, but some of them I think have kind of removed some of what used to make Galaxy of Heroes a really fun game to play. So let's get started here with the first one, and we'll get into our introduction as I finish this raid here. So the first one I want to talk about is the raid. This raid system, as good as it has been for the game, has one major flaw. And that is there's very little, shall we say, recycling of teams. And what I mean by recycling is that once this raid is over, the potential players who are going to invest in Gungans is going to shrink. That most players are no longer going to invest in the Gungans because they're not going to be a raid team. They're going to be a good team, but they're not going to be a great team anymore, right? A lot of their value is tied to this raid. So one of the things that I thought would be a really good idea is give us these premier raids for, say, they give us that like 6 to 9 month window. Well, what if you gave it to us for, say, 6 months? This is the premier raid. And then the last, 3 months, you do a month of the crate raid, a month of the speeder bike raid, and a month of the Battle for Naboo, right? And, you return to it, but that you go back to those other raids for a period of time. And what that will allow players to do, at least the way that I see it, is I think it's going to encourage people to continue to invest into some of those other teams, because when those raids do happen, they don't want a drop off in resources. So that I think would be a really good idea, kind of recycle some of those raids a little bit, because I'm looking to the players who are on that middle part of the game now where they're like, oh, Phil, I can't go crazy into this Battle for Naboo because I need everything else. And if you do go crazy into this raid and then it ends, the next one begins, like, it can be really hard to catch up. You feel like you did all this great work for Battle for Naboo and the Crate Dragon raid and the speeder bike raid, and a lot of it, not that there aren't some good teams that come out of it, but there's some investments that you're making that you're like, like, if we're all being honest here, you go to your Galactic Republic Jedi and you think about these characters, most people are not looking at Luminara, Eve Koth, Plo Koon, Kit Fisto, and Ayla Sakura and thinking, yeah, I can't wait to use them in Grand Arena, especially once the Datacrons go away. So I think the recycling of that raid to say, hey, this is still a sound investment 2 years down the line is not a bad idea. So that's the first QoL change. If the background looks a little different, I'm traveling for work, so that's gonna look a little bit different here for the next couple of days. But let's give our shout out to the channel members now for their continued support. Ever interested, link down below along with the link to the Discord. Go check it out, guys. Thank you again. I really appreciate it. Videos start off a little bit differently today. I'll explain a little bit of that as we continue on going through here. Let's get our introduction and let's get going. So yeah, I know it seemed a little bit strange that, like, I'm starting off with a raid run, and this is the second part of the QoL, right? So the first QoL idea was, hey, the raid, recycle some of these older raids. But this next part kind of has to do with how much time it takes to play this game. There's a lot of time going into this game, and I've found myself where I don't feel like I can always content create because I've got to do something, whether it's territory battles or Grand Arena or whatever. There's a lot that goes into it. And so you guys might see in some of my videos, especially this week, that I'll probably be doing territory battle stuff or other things just to kind of, keep something in the background going on for you guys and kill two birds with one stone. So the second QoL here again being, it takes so much time to play this game. But one of the big time sinks for me in Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes relates to Conquest. And inside of Conquest, it's feat tracking. When you guys think about playing Conquest, and you're going through some of those sectors and you're trying to figure out, hey, am I on pace for this feat? And you've got to go and get out of the sector and go to the global feat, or you have to go through all these hoops just to see where those feats are. And one of the things that I thought would be a really good change for the game is if instead they kind of had, like, where your guild chat is down here, if they had like a section where it's like Conquest, and that you could use this to go into Conquest and see, hey, here's your feats, whether it's, breaking it down to sector 1, 2, 3 or whatever, that you could see in a little chat screen here what's your progress towards that feat, so you had some idea of, how close you were going to get to completing that feat. Like, hey, if I need to milk blind for a second longer, I need to milk blind, or if I need to do this, whatever the case is. It's one of the big, I'll say, problems that this game has at times, is that there's not a lot of good, it's not just, I don't want to say just tracking, but there's not a lot of good reason for us to be able to, it's that dead time, right? Going in and checking in on all those feats just takes so long to do. And so I think that by eliminating that, it'd be really good. Sorry, I kind of got sidetracked. Like, Jedi Master Kenobi looked like he was going to keep using damage immunity on me. I was going to get pissed. But I think it would save me a lot of time because I'm constantly switching back and forth. And that's the kind of time, I always say dead time, but I don't know that I've ever mentioned it in the Conquest sense, the feat tracking and how much time that does take out of my playthroughs of Conquest. And even more so when you think about it, that, could I have milked the clock maybe a little bit longer, gotten more of those debuffs or buffs or whatever out on the field in that time, and that way I could just sim through the treasure nodes, reducing the amount of time that you have to do stuff like that is crucial to the longevity of this game. So the next part here, now this one's a little bit more complicated, but they need to explain the GAC Skill Squish. And I mean, I don't know how else to say this, right? But like, the GAC Skill Squish just makes no sense to me. I'm going to go back and do another territory battle here as I talk about this. So when you guys think about Grand Arena and you think about how, the scores are calculated, one of the most ambiguous, the one that has the most ambiguity around it is the whole Skill Squish. None of us really understand how the Skill Squish works. We don't understand what goes into it, what makes it so that some people get the squish and others don't. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. So I was thinking, I'm like, what? I would love if they would just give us almost the calculation behind it, saying, hey, here's literally every little piece that goes into the Skill Squish, right? That, hey, Phil, you're losing because you are, you're not full clearing all the time. You're just putting up a single battle and then you're leaving, or, hey, the Skill Squish goes into the fact that you, even in some of the ones that you're winning, you're not full clearing them because you don't feel like doing the full clear if they're not going to clear you, right? Like, that could be, just give us what's going into it. And even if you're just like, listen, there's no rhyme or, like, I shouldn't say that there's no rhyme or reason, because I'm sure there's somehow, some way that it's supposed to do something, but that maybe it's just that there isn't I don't want to say legitimate, but that there's not you can't change the fact that you're going to get squished, 70,000 points every single time, because it is insane. Like, I'm not going to pretend that it isn't. It is something that really does bother me a lot, and I feel like a lot of players are getting bothered by it more and more recently, that this squish is just so, like, overpowering. And, like, I'm in Kyber 3, if you guys saw that. Like, I was in Kyber 3, and I still have an overall, like, winning record in Grand Arena. So it's all just due to the Skill Squish, right? It's crazy. So, like, just explaining what goes into it, I think, would be a massive shift in the QoL. Or to a quality of life, that you could gauge, hey, is there something I could be doing in Grand Arena? Like, do you need to keep your opponent from clearing? Do you need to clear? Like, what's going into all those things? Or is there nothing you can do about it and, it sucks to suck? Like, that, you can tell us that. That's fine. It's the ambiguity, I think, that's the problem, right? And I think, again, just giving us that comfort of, hey, listen, there's no rhyme or reason, or there is a rhyme or reason, and here's how. That would be a quality of life update. It just would give us the perspective of what's actually happening, right? And that's a big part for, I think, this game as a whole. The satisfaction we get out of it at times just comes from the fact of, do we know what's happening, right? So this next one, again, kind of continuing on through, like, territory battles here. One of the things that I think would be really, really good is the ability to, and this one's a little bit more challenging, right? But when I think about territory battles in particular, I think one area that could really help everyone in the game is if officers had the ability to hard shut down maps. and extend phases. This one I am recycling from the past, but it's one that I just, like, for example, let's say that my guild was going to stop, that we were not going to get a star on Corellia here, that my officers could lock down this planet, that you literally can't do anything, that, you know, they all vote or whatever. Hey, at this point, boom, lock the planet. Now, there is an element here of, hey, you know, you have to have, like, if officers are throwing a fit or whatever, so there'd have to be some measures to it, right? That, hey, if, you know, 75% of the guild vote to open up the planet, then the planet gets opened or something. You know, there has to be some measure of balance to it, so that way somebody can't just sabotage their guild. But the ability to lock a planet down, because there's so many times where people will accidentally overload a planet, and it requires the officers to spend so much time managing territory battles. And instead of being able to really play this game, they're sitting there managing TB, right? And I think it's one of the big areas that this game misses out on, is just, you know, there's a lot of, you know, again, like I said with Conquest, that kind of dead time. There's that time in the game where you're not really playing it and you're just having to manage it because the tools that exist inside of it just are not that great, right? And that's going to lead me to, I think, my final QoL here. And this is going to come down to, you know, more so of anything, guild management. So when you think about your guild, there's 50 players there, right? It is 50 people, and they could be across all different time zones, all different nationalities, you know, whatever you want to say, right? And it can be, like, I can tell you, it can be extremely challenging to manage guilds in Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes with the current setup that we have, right? The guild chat is terrible. You know, ticket tracking is, you know, the ticket tracking has definitely gotten better, but it's still just, you know, there's not an easy way to do things. And then finally, like, just from a, you know, other standpoint too, when you think about, like, you know, trying to manage a guild, you know, the operations assignments and territory war placements, like, there's so many opportunities that they could give guilds and guild officers to be able to say, hey, you know, if we added this to the game, it would actually be much easier for you to spend time playing Galaxy of Heroes rather than having to spend time, you know, fixing whatever somebody did. You know, thinking about, like, operation assignments. It would be so nice if there was a thing in the game that you could go in, much like Hot Utils does, where you can pick and choose who sets something up. Like, how nice would it be as an officer if you could go in there and that you could assign, hey, Fat Phil, you go and click this, you know, you go into your operations, you enter, and you have a little button over here that says deploy my assignments, and boom, your assigned characters go in. Like, that would be awesome. You know, that saves me time, and in the long run, it would probably save the officers time, because I think a big reason players miss operations at times is because you do have to go in, go check Discord, and then you got to go back in and, okay, planet 1, then planet 2. Like, it with one screen, it's not the easiest thing to do. So, you know, that's kind of my, you know, spiel on some QoLs that I think could be good for the game. You know, just, like, better guild management tools. Better, hey, let's recycle some of that old raid content. Let's get some feat tracking going on. You know, explain the skill squish. You know, there's a lot of opportunities in this game that I think could be solved if they, how do I say this? If you made just slight tweaks and adjustments here, you know, and again, I love this game. Like, this is not complaining. This is, like, to me, quality of life is stuff that would make the game more enjoyable, not stuff that would make it enjoyable, if you know what I mean. Like, I already find this game enjoyable. I wouldn't still be playing this game if I wasn't at least enjoying it a little bit. But it would, you know, could increase my enjoyment if they did things like this. You let me know your guys' thoughts. I love you all. May the force be with you, and I'll see you in the next one. And I don't know if I did 4 or 5, honestly. I lost count. It's been a very long day. So if you're going to go to the comments and say, oh, it wasn't enough, listen, like, I am exhausted. I'm going to, after this video, I'm going to crack open a beer and finish off my food from Raising Cane's. So love you all. May the force be with you, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, my friends.